So then the oldest school, after they occupied India for 850 years, something like that. So this school is completely gone. So we only have the text, mostly written in Chinese. And then he was captured by a general, the army general, Lieutenant, because this general actually wanted to become a king. But Kumaraji was so popular, so famous, and they think that within is almost like they have one of the precious person with them. It's very important for them to rule the country. So he was captured during 382. So he lived there for 7 years. That we know from there onward, he was captured there, and then he studied Chinese for 17 years. So, and after that, of course, the king called Yao Zhan. But we have to understand this king. It's very popular. It's very important. Later on, he was succeeded by the king called Yao Xin. Why we have to mention about him? Because he is the first king in China recognized Buddhism almost like the religion, the main religion to China. So, even without this king Yao Xin, he was ruled until 416. If without him, I would think, if you ask my opinion would be the Buddhism in China will have much more problem. Okay, and because the Chinese culture, Chinese have a very stubborn mind to reject any foreign ideas. Okay, so that's why, and this is also show how important Kumarajiva was. Imagine when Kumarajiva arrived, after when this king captured Kumarajiva from the general, when he destroyed the general, and then he captured and bring him to the central China, so-called the capital of China. So so he immediately worshipped Kumarajiva. And in the Chinese culture, a king never worshipped any other body. Okay, and it's not like Christian. It's not like those who are Caucasian here. They have a Christian background. Completely understand the picture is very different. So they don't. The Chinese king would never worship anybody. They might do festival. They might do certain ritual for the heavens. But they don't. And he was the first one who really and then worshipped Kumarajiva when he arrived. Now, and the other important point, which is people are not mentioned, mostly Chinese, even you read a lot of Chinese book about Kumarajiva, is he started to teach meditation the 6th day after he arrived to the palace. Okay. I mean, why people don't talk about that? People are not interested in meditation, and they don't even read that. They even forget about that happened, almost like. They only know Kumarajiva translate the sutra, like the Mahana Sutra, of the Amitabha Sutra, and the Lotus Sutra, and the Diamond Sutra, all translated by Kumarajiva. And that's even I think, if I was not wrong, even the Prajaparamita version of the Prajaparamita Sutra. Okay. Now, what we must understand later, I will talk a little bit about that. One text called Mahaprajaparamita is a treatise, which is, according to Kumarajiva idea, is written by Nagarjuna. Okay, so and since then, the Chinese way of understanding the Shunyata is highly based on this text. Okay, this is for people who are interested in studying text about Shunyata. If you say that I study the Shunyata in the Chinese system, but I don't read the Mahaprajaparamita, and then it would be very funny to me. I know it's still a lot of scholars like that, and a lot of people, but that would be very funny. Because, so that shows how important that the Kumarajiva. Okay. All right. Now let's just begin with because for the time is very short. So sorry, the computer is little. Okay. Oh, this is I didn't translate it, but I just want to say when Kumarajiva started to do the translation from 403 in April 23rd. Okay, In April 2243, the Chinese have a very clear record on everything sometimes, especially for these important months. So those are the very accurate sources. So when he arrived there, the place, actually when he started to do the translation, the king itself participated in the translation. So it showed that he was so keen, And of course, Buddhism started to have a Buddhist text from 2nd century to China. Not Buddhism. The China started to have the Buddhist text from 2nd century. So, and they compare the previous certain version, and with the Kumarajiva could recite the text, because Kumarajiva, recite the text, and he was memorized by heart. In Sanskrit, I guess, because Sarvastivada are mostly use a Sanskrit text. Because the Sarvastivada said that. Okay? This is very clear if you study the Buddhist history. So in Sanskrit, and he was recited in Sanskrit, and then it been translated into Chinese, and the king also doing the editing as well. So to show how the king was really dedicated to the Buddhism. This is from a record. Okay, all right. Now, so in total, actually, Kumarajiva have done the work of about 98 texts. This is how generally, when you study general way, saying that altogether about 4,025 fascicles. Fascicle is almost like, usually if you look at one fascicle is this long, maybe if you translate into English, it's about 3,000 pages. 3 pages, at least 3 pages. A4 size, or at least 3 to 5 pages. Imagine, just multiply by 3. So it means how many that translation have done in those days. Okay, if you 4,025 multiplied by 3, or something could be 5. So imagine how much translation have done in the past. Okay, when he was there. So, and then, but of course, now the extension nowadays we only find totally in 74. So now, okay, there's some other thing I like to mention about when I read my Kumarajiva is just for people to inspire. Okay, maybe even follow Kumarajiva footsteps. One of the great master. So when he was young, his mother always remind him that he should take his body as a stone. Dukkha indeed happen, but no bearing of resentment is allowed. Okay. In other words, there's a dukkha. Your body is just like a wok. The stone wok in Chinese. When you cook something, you need the wok, the wok, and then you fry everything. It's like burning that. And then that's his mother. The way to ask him has to be really persistent and working hard. Dukkha always happen. The wok is burning with the fire all the time. You put the vegetable there, you put the food there, you fry and fry, you cook everything, you cook the soup. This is how a Chinese way in old days, particularly this is about, 4 to 5 century thing. And and he said dukkha is always happen, but you shouldn't get angry, without resentment. And then the other thing is, it's actually before he passed away, he always say that, my writing cannot compare to Katyayana. Is one of the historical Greek master, which have a great contribution to Abhidhamma. So he said, but this place, this country in China at that time, so people really understand that are so meager, so few of person that can understood that. So if I turn this, so what basically mean, what can I talk about, So he was kind of always crying, when he was. So in other words, even though Chinese people always try to say, oh, our Chinese study them very hard, very good, but look at the record, this was a record by his students, among. In China, everything being recorded is very carefully recorded. And at least I guess they have a privilege to be allowed to record this. This shows that actually the Chinese people at the time are not very keen. Maybe they don't have a good background, or maybe they are not very keen. I mean, I'm a Chinese. I can tell you, they were not very keen, many things. So even when he was old, before he passed away, actually he was kind of like regret to say, I have no power like Atkachayana to write something for the Chinese, something like that. So that's why he feel very sad, because the Chinese, if you want to study more like maybe from what they learned, their background tradition, it's so hard for them. And I always can relate that the same as in America as well. I mean, some Americans maybe don't like me to say that, but I feel that too. But I mean, it doesn't mean that you can practice. But when I'm talking about the study, the devotion is very different sometimes. Okay. All right. Now we talk about the text. The text which I'm going many is just only based on one of the texts. The sources are based on many from one text, but I will have one commentary. To add some of the ideas. The text is sometimes you could say that sutra on the samadhi of sitting meditation. In Chinese, it's 坐禅三昧经, or you could just say the sitting samadhi sutra. Okay, just for the sake of easiness to speak, the sitting samadhi sutra. So, and this text, he was composed. He has actually composed few of the meditation texts. This is below. There were 4 we can find now. It said that he had composed 5. Okay, but we only can find 4 so far. Now the text is mean the sitting samadhi sutra composed by Kumarajiva, not translate. I mean, of course he has to translate because that was originally in Sanskrit, but composed mean he combined it based on the 7 teachers. Those are very famous teachers, and after the Buddha passed away, Sangaraksha, Vasumitra, Upagupta, Sangasena, Asvagosa, and then Kumaralata. Okay. So I mean, I want to show this is so short. You could see how sincere Kumarajiva is. He didn't say, "Oh, I did it, I done it, I write it myself." He did. He composed, and he want to show the authorization as well. He composed this by the past master meditation manual. Okay. So, and then he I guess for the easiness for the Chinese to study meditation, the same thing like now I give a talk and I need to arrange some different sources just for people who can understand the idea easily the same way. So Kumaraji was composed under the 7 teachers. Asvakosa, everybody heard about it. Kumarada is the most famous teacher basically for Sarvastivada. No, sorry, not Sarvastivada. The Sautrantika, the Jinbu. So you could see that he has Asvakosa and Kumarada as a Jinbu, the Sautrantika school. And then you have the Upagupta. Upagupta is so famous even in Burma, in Myanmar. So they still have a story about Upagupta, how powerful he could be. Anyway, so, and those are the very, very famous meditation master after the Buddha passed away, like a few hundred years, or at least 100, 200 years. Okay, now let's just basically see about the text. The text itself, it's a well-organized manual about how one practice in order to become Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, and Arahat. I mean, how one can become the saint and of the Sravakayana, okay, and become Arahat ultimately. And then they also have a very little describe and how different if you want to follow the path called this Pathaka Buddha path. Now today we have some the main teaching, the main topic is about how the path for the Bodhisattva. Okay. So this text is so important. It's a very short, but that whole thing, Kumarajiva must use all his study. Imagine he was a genius and he was a prodigy when he was young. He can remember so many texts. And he came to China and under the king, and then the request, as particularly under the monk request, that later become his famous, most devoted students, and then he composed this text. Okay, and this text is it's almost like the whole essence of what the Kumarajiva understand. If you want to become Arahant, how you should practice, and if you want to be Pratyeka Buddha, what kind of thing you need to do, and if you want to become a Buddha and to follow the Bodhisattva path, what you should do. You know, this is why I think to study Kumarajiva, to me, we don't understand this text is a very, very funny way. Because we care about how, at least, how much, how devoted we do our practice is one another story. But at least we must know the whole path system, how to practice. We should get the idea. At least, some, idea is very important. All right, now let's see about actually, in other words, the sutra on this so-called samadhi sitting meditation. So you have the Shravaka Yana is included. You have the Paticca Buddha Yana is included. Mean the path to the Shravaka, for arahantship, and the path to the Paticca Buddha, and then have the path for the Bodhisattva. Okay. So, and then this is this is almost like, we are so lucky nowadays. We can just have one text and understand the whole thing. In either in abstract or in essence, or or in a gist. Imagine in those days they had to spend to go different places or study under different teachers, memorize all the texts. So we just have the lucky honor that we just simply follow the his instruction. It's very clear instruction actually. If you have time, we can talk about that more. Now, according to his system, that based on, as I said, the 7 very, very famous masters, the manuscripts. So he put that into that 5 ways of saying. So firstly, for those who be inclined or have the temperament of the lust, people are always thinking about sex. Or sometimes, if your mind wanted to be more purer rather than just being, attracted by the sex or what. So then you have to do meditation on the asubha. Usually we call the impurity of human body. So there's a way of meditation. For those who is like a temperament is more a hatred, always not happy, always not caring, not very, they have to meditate of the loving kindness or the Brahma Vihara. And then those people who are very ignorant, and they have to do the meditation on dependent origination. And for those who are always mind very, very scattered away, like wandering away or scattering, it's very hard to focus. Then they have to start with the mindfulness of breath. And for those who actually are equally okay with above 4, like not too strong, and then they can start to meditate on mindfulness on the Buddha. Okay. So those are the 5 kind of meditation. And then the interesting part is that, at least to my understanding, when I start become a monk, before I become a monk, the Chinese culture nowadays maybe only just emphasize the 5th one, and then the 4 are almost gone. Okay, and also because of Zen Buddhism is very different from what is. Please, even we are talking about the Chan, the same way the Zen is a Japanese term, Chan in a Chinese term. But please, in Kumarajiva time, the Chan understanding of the Chan is completely different from what now the American understanding is Zen, okay, or even sometimes the Japan understanding is Zen. So please don't mix it together, okay? Because we know that even the 6 patriarchs started Zen Buddhism during 7th century and 8th century. So that was actually after 400 years of Kumarajiva. So you must understand that the meditation method is completely different. Please don't think about the Chinese Buddhism being always a Zen. Now, just sit here, think about the Gong'an. Don't think that. That is completely wrong idea. Not that's how it starts. Okay, right now, what this is. So according, I would just want to have few important concepts. He say if a practitioner want to attend a nirvana directly, so he has to start to apply the meditation, so-called the four establishment of mindfulness, smiti upasthana, in Pali called, the sati patana, right? The same thing as the Pali tradition. And then they have to absorb the four, above the four, it's regard to the feeling, regard to the body, regard to the mind, regard to the understanding of the thing that called Dharma. So they are the impermanent, they are suffering, they are empty, and they're selfless. In other words, no soul. Okay. And then the important is also penetrate the Four Noble Truths, so that but this is a little different from a Pali, but the Four Noble Truths is the same, but you have to penetrate with the understanding in order to able to have a full understanding of these 16 akara. I don't have time to explain that now, but at least because this is not our today focus, but it's just telling you. So once you could do that, you become partially awakened people already. Okay, this is a Kumarajiva, and it's very typical of the Sarvastivada school. This for those people who have some understanding of Sarvastivada school, I could say a little more. It is actually interestingly, Kumarajiva definitely have his way of understanding Sarvastivada practice, and he could put it really, really in a very, I would say, in a practical way. This is something that I hope before I die, I can write something about that for people. Anyway, so if those people who are interested in Mahayana, so I like to stress here, the basic method of Mahayana practitioner who want to be a bodhisattva, they don't want to be arahant, the method are the same exactly as the arahant. There's no difference. Okay. Now, if there's, of course, there's a difference. So where is the difference? But the whole foundation is the same exactly. Okay. Now, the only difference is just what I'm going to talk now. Okay. So it is very important to remember, even Kumarajiva never think the Shravakayana, I mean, usually been accused as a Hinayana, was useless. Never. Okay. On the contrary, without that foundation, there's no way you could proceed to a bodhisattva path. That is very clear by Kumarajiva meditation manual. All his four manual said the same thing. Okay. This is about practice. Okay. He's not doing a translation. When you do a translation, you have a certain text, maybe request by the king. Oh, this is about a different Buddha on the world. Can you translate it? Imagine. Don't say even the king. Even nowadays, if even the president in America asks me to translate something, how could I refuse? Even in the 4th century fiction, of course. So sometimes I don't agree with what other people think. Oh, he translated, he must believe it. He must be strongly believe it. I say not necessarily. He studied, like I sometimes I translate something because a friend asked me to do it, and because they pay me money to do it, and I just want to earn the money. So there are lots of reasons, but of course, we have to really. I'm not here to say which is a clear picture, is a true picture, but we need to, think about that sometime. Okay, now let's go to further. So sorry, the computer is a little freeze now. Okay, so there were 5 ways of remind meditation on impureness, mindfulness on the Buddha, and observation of dependent origination, and meditating on the breath and cultivation of love. You might be thinking I'm a little bit biased. I put the cultivation of love as a big picture. I will tell you why. Okay. Now, now look at these 5 things. It's even if Kumarajiva think that was important, and then how you have to put these 5 things, almost like many he have actually laid out the first 3 things, how they can proceed to practice after when you are done all this meditation, how you can continue to practice as a bodhisattva. Okay. So he say that, this is translation, if the practitioner seeks the full awakening of the Buddhas in meditation, he should first fix his mind and concentrate on the living bodies of the Buddhas in the 10 direction and of the 3 period of time. Now, when you do the meditation on the Buddha, so it means the mindfulness of Buddha, you have to think about the quality of the Buddha and the 32 part of the body of the Buddha, and then also the meditation on this. That time we don't have Buddha statue. It's not popular, and the Buddha statue we invent, quite it was not very popular. So maybe yes, there was you can do meditation on that the Buddha body, and then even you have to contemplate the life of the Buddha, as well as even think about the whole direction we feel with the Buddha. So, and then here he say that, but with that, you had to concentrate on the living bodies of the Buddha. In all the directions have the Buddha, but during the past and the present time, and even in the future time. But then the thing is, he was saying that this is what he do as a bodhisattva. Think about it, all direction of Buddha. I'm sure that if you are Chinese, particularly you recite certain Chinese texts, or even you study Buddhism before, you always heard about that. But unfortunately, people think about the 10 direction of Buddha as a kind of metaphor. Oh, there were 10 directions of Buddha. Actually, that was not metaphor. That was a meditation. You have to able to focus your mind to all direction are pervaded the Buddha around. And then what he had to do, continue, then he has to analyze this body, or understand this body with the 6 elements. Okay. And then this is how he had to focus. I know this is a little skill thing, because we have a time for you to ask questions if you ask later. Okay. So, and he has to, when he attend this kind of single-mindedness, 就是心意尽性 in Chinese, that means the focus, the concentration are so good, become even ekagrata in Sanskrit, or in Pali ekagata. Okay, so it means that when you have the single-mindedness or the mind, one-pointness, so he then developed the aversion in his mind, seek to be liberated from his body. I know this is a strange translation, but in other words, he must have renounced mind. I should translate that way. He had to renounce. Even then, when he had to focus mind, he has to renounce, feel that they have to renunciation, and then he need to be renounce his body. In other words, not to attach to body. So this is how he can. Easily discern to attain nirvana. But the problem is, as a bodhisattva, you don't want to attain nirvana. Okay? So then he had to very quickly to have the great compassion, the great loving kindness and great compassion. So to save the sentient beings. So this I want to cut it short. Basically, he said that he had a realization. This kind of realization is different from what usually we practice after loving kindness meditation, because he had to understand all the people, and in other words, as I just mentioned earlier. So when a bodhisattva become practice, he must be very advanced being already, and he has able to practice like those foundation they have established. Remember, when you practice a loving kindness, you have to learn 1 direction, 2 direction, 3 direction, up direction, down direction, all direction, and then you'll be able to visualize all the living beings around, and then you still spread, or you still why you are still part of what is paritwa. You still can spread your or you still can fulfill or spread or perfume, you could say, your loving kindness to everybody. But as a that's the practice for Shravakya, or the foundation. So the Bodhisattva, certainly he knew that already. Now, but he need to go further. So firstly, he need to meditate on all directions of the Buddha. I need to mention that again. And then he must understand that he need to renounce his body and not to attach his body, and as well as he has to arouse the great compassion and the great maitri. So how he need to just realize that that people are suffering, so he needs to help them. So, and further, like the people, even they were born, or they were, traditionally understand they were born like the rhyme of the desire. I mean, they still have, based on the sexual for their, life. And here, I mean, this is very Buddhist way of saying, attached to, I mean, the monk, especially for the monkhood, attached to the impurity like a dog eating the feces, not faces, the feces, So, and then he has to awaken them, to have a compassion to them. So all this, I'm not going to explain everything. All this actually is about, all this contemplation, why they are still have the samadhi, have the very strong meditation, but the mind still have the understanding. It's more like a banya, the wisdom. The understanding that the wisdom is for the sake of the great mind, a great compassion, and great loving kindness. So to understand that, so whatever kind of stage they are, these beings, that they have to help, So basically. Okay, now after even they develop this, now this is very clear from this earlier mentioned. He start with the meditation of the loving kindness, okay, and the Brahma Vihara, and then to build the samadhi, the concentration. Once that build the concentration also, and he has to visualize the Buddha, okay, and understand that he need to renounce the body, and also understand that they need to save the sentient being. So transform from the Buddha into sentient being. I mean, the visualization into the sentient being, and then need to save them whatever stage these sentient beings they are. In other words, they are suffer. So because of so all of those are unfortunate and they suffer. So we need to help them. Those are all about meditation. Okay. Now, from there also all these people, so because, and then he have a very deep Buddhist teachings, understand that these persons, whether they are permanent or not permanent, are pure or not pure. So, but the problem is that we need to understand, to meditate. This is a time for one to meditate the impureness. I know this is a lot of information, but you don't have to remember everything. But at least just hear over, like, okay, listen to have a very good description how the practice is going on. Okay. So then he say that the wisdom that observe impureness arise from the cause and condition. So anyway, basically, so from this is all is a contemplation. From that contemplation, he understands he need to practice the impureness as well. Okay, I just want to put it short. So. So he say, I shall now learn that according to the Bodhisattva Dharma, practicing a meditation on the impurity and removing lust is done in order to teach sentient beings widely and detach them from the misfortune caused by the lust. I shall not be overwhelmed by meditation on impureness. Okay. Now, because practice impureness is believed, like, when you visualize a person, for example, as a beginner or the foundational practice, you need to think about that person's getting old, the skin is getting wrinkled, and even the inside, the flesh, and then they have the lot of different, let's say our nose has knot, right? And then you will have a different kind of, we have urine, we have blood, we have so many dirty things inside the body. And then we have, if you separate the organs, you have organs, you have this lung, liver, and all sort of thing. So we are just like a vase. In English we say vase, but in American say vase, just like a vase. You look very beautiful outside, but inside is full of the, dirty thing, a lot of these snakes, scorpion. You thought, oh, this is a beautiful vase, but when you put your hand inside, and then you get bitten or you get poisoned, like that. This is one of the popular simile in all tradition. Anyway, but here we must understand, if you practice arahantship, you have to keep on and keep on until you really think, oh, this is so disgusting, I'm done with it. So this is how you can completely renounce your body. But as a bodhisattva, you don't. Okay? But you still want to practice impureness. And you want to practice impureness because you want to save people. And at the same time, you will still use the person, the sentient being you're visualizing, all have the impureness done. There's a lot of contradiction, it looks like, But this is why you have to learn how to think it in a correct way. Okay. Anyway, so basically say I should not be overwhelmed by meditating on the impureness. And now I should now learn that according to the Bodhisattva Dharma, practicing meditation on the impurities and removing lust is done in order to teach sentient beings widely and detach them. I put that again. Just to emphasize that why they want to meditate on impureness, because then they can detach themselves from lust, right? But still, they still can teach these people how to remove themselves from lust. Okay. Okay. Now, after that, they should even, though you see, they has already observed the impurity and detest the samsara. Samsara means, the places wherever you were born, you have to be reborn and reborn and reborn, called samsara. So you must detest this kind of reborn and reborn. Oh, I'm so tired of it. I'm fed up. I'm done. No, why I should still, in my mind, sometimes like that. Then one should observe the pure aspect now. So the pure aspect is after when you're able to completely remove your lust, and then also you really feel okay, fed up with the samsara. And then he say, one have to put one mind in three spots. I know this is sound a little detail, but I find it very interesting. So that's I like to share, even a little more detail. Not necessarily people are interested, but I think I find it very funny. I could say a little bit funny in a way. So he said, in the middle of the spot, one should cut open the skin for 1 inch and remove the blood and flesh. This is all about the meditation, okay? It's not ask you to do autopsy, okay? And then he say, one then concentrate one's mind on the white bond without letting the mind be distracted by other objects. So in other words, this is usually traditional say how you start to, once you can visualize the body, have this kind of different kind of organs or things in the physical body. Now you remove that skin and remove the blood and the flesh and all, and now you can see only the bone. So then you just only focus on the bone. And from there, you develop the white, what we call the white kasina as well, and as well as the bone meditation, the skeleton meditation, a meditation on the skeletons. So, and according to that Kumarajiva's method, or at least in this manual, so when you have this, when you do that visualization and only fix on the skeleton, and this is called the one-pointers. Okay. Now, then the other thing is that if one gives rise to great compassion because of aversion, one takes pity on them. Okay. For the sake of these empty bonds, they stay away from nirvana and enter the threefold destinies. I should exert myself to cultivate various merits, teach sentient beings, and make them understand that the characteristic of the body is empty, the bonds are enveloped in the skin, but in fact, the body is filled with impurity. Okay. Now, this is actually after when you are able to make your mind so focused that you can meditate on the skeleton. Now, maybe people might have a question: why you want to mention about skeleton? Why he has to do the skeleton? Because in the arahantship also, to meditate, ultimately, in order to gain the samadhi, you are also need to, if you are focused on meditate on the impureness of the body, one of the good way traditionally is that you remove all the thing and only let that skeleton stays. Okay, it's a very, you could say it's a very popular in those days of practice. But the difference is that when you have that meditate on the skeleton, at that time, but you still have to able to generate your compassion and loving kindness. And then the skeleton that time is not impure, it's pure. Okay. I know this is a very, at least this is a Chinese way of explaining. When you meditate on the physical body with the flesh, blood, and everything, it's impure. But when you can strip that off, and then your lust is gone, but your mind can stay in a very focused point, and you need to have a very strong focus point that is a skeleton. And the skeleton, because it's a focus point, it gives you a really great mind and stable concentration and samadhi, and then your mind become pure. That's why it's called pure. Okay. Sorry, because the computer is a little. Okay. Okay, let me just say that back there again. So the way for bodhisattva is cultivate on the impurity for renunciation, the renunciation of the body, particularly, or actually even the mind as well. But normally we don't say that, we just say renunciation of the body, because I know the later Tibetan tradition, they say the renunciation of mind as well. That's the different way of explaining it. But here, basically, the renunciation of the body, you don't detach the body. Attached to the body, you detach the body, and you are just fed up with the samsara. Okay. And then you have to cultivate the maitri for the three level in order to develop the sandhi or the patient paramita. Okay. And then based on these three, you have to base on the three objects for the practice of the sandhi. So I know this is so far I just want to have a little for the easiness for you to understand. Kumarajuva in the Buddhist meditation manual say that you practice you have to get rid of the lust. You have to get rid of the distraction, right? And then you have to get rid of your anger or hatred. And then you need to get rid if you're ignorance. And then you need to get rid of the ignorance. And the other thing is that you must have the faith to the Buddha. And all these give you a very good concentration. And at the same time, they also have a different benefit from that. One, build up the faith when you meditate on the Buddha. One, build up your loving kindness and compassion when you get rid of your anger. So one get rid of your unfocused when you meditation on your breath, and one get rid of what we call the wandering mind, and when you meditate on the breath, one get rid of your lust, and when you meditate on the impureness of the bodies or autonomy. Okay, and what is I forget to mention? One get rid of the ignorance because you think that how that you should look at a thing, but if you meditate on the dependent or origination. So, but when you are really good at that meditation, but you should not detach yourself yet. Then you jump into become a saint. Like you practice the satipatthana. You also have to practice satipatthana, mean the four foundation of mindfulness, and then to understand they were not just practice of it, but then you have to go further. Then you have the realization of they are impermanent, or they are the emptiness, or they are the dukkha, I mean you could unsatisfactory, and they are even no self or no soul, right? And with that skill you develop, and you could able to use, I don't have time to explain here, with that different way to have to reach to the Four Noble Truth, in the truth of the suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the elimination of cause of suffering, and the truth of the path leading to the elimination of the truth of the cause of the suffering, right? So those are the Arahant have to do, and Bodhisattva must practice all. Now, what they have to do further, it's not about the realization already. It's about how they still can keep on, not to be disturbed by the lust, and not to be disturbed by the anger, so that they can have a better compassion and loving kindness. This is what we call the great compassion and great loving kindness. Okay. So that's why this is what the Bodhisattva need to do further before really call. You could call someone really practice a paramita. So that's why here I put it, let me just spell it here. That's why firstly, the Bodhisattva have to cultivate the impurity again by visualizing the Buddha. And then once they understand the Buddha, also the physical body still also impermanent and also filled of impurity. So this why transform to the sentient being. And from the sentient being, and then he again started to do the impurity. So when they have understand the impurity and they just fell up with the samsara, because you must have this renunciation mind of fell up with the samsara and fell up with the physical body, so you don't attach to this body anymore. And then someone could even proceed to, have the focus so good by what of the meditating on the skeleton. That's what in Chinese language called from impureness to the pureness. When then the mind was stable on the skeletons, because skeleton is white, usually it's understood as a white. Okay, and then when the mind was focused, and they started to also need to understand sentient being needs to be helped. This is why when you have a focused mind, your samadhi is so good, but your mind still have a kind of maybe thinking process, kind of understanding process there. The understanding process that people sentient beings need to be helped. So this is why here to say cultivate on the impurity for renunciation, and then cultivate the Maitri, and Maitri is a loving kindness for the three level of the Shanti, in order to develop the three levels of Shanti, Paramita. And then based on that, there were three kind of objects. I know it's a big subject, as I say, but at least here's something very confusing, sometimes challenging. Okay. Now and then so to remember again, so this impurity and have a love and depend origin and breath, and the Buddha still as the five way are always have to be used. Okay. Interchangeably. This is, I'm not going to say it now, I need to focus my topic. So, but you could see that actually what the Bodhisattva use is exactly this five things all together. They learn from the Arahantship way, but shift it a little bit with the great idea of the great compassion and great loving kindness. And in order to stay for focus with the skeleton, and if you have the last coming, still have to do the impurity. This is still actually very funny. When I read about the Tibetan tradition text, it's exactly very similar. This is a very earlier resource that we have, other than Tibetan, because Tibetan usually come from after 8 centuries. Okay. Now, maybe I guess I don't know whether we should proceed. I don't have the time with me. Let me see. Because when I don't know whether I need to talk much, because otherwise the other is a little too. Let me see. I should adjust the time. Can anyone tell me what time is it now?
11:12.
It's 11:12. Okay, why don't we just open a little time for question first, and then if you want, we can go further. Since I have almost 30 minutes to spend, and then I will guide a little meditation as well. So, is there any questions so far?
Bhante, you mentioned toward the beginning of your talk the Diamond Sutra, and you mentioned that it was translated in the 2nd century AD into Chinese?
No. The Diamond Sutra was first, I think, if I was not wrong, it was first translated 300 something 4th century.
Oh, okay.
And then Kumarajiva also retranslated again.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
But the earlier sutra was translated into Chinese was by, he was a prince, a Persian prince from East, and he became a monk, and he said he was Arahant as well. So he went to China about 216, and then he taught meditation. So he had written, based on his teaching, actually being composed. He didn't really. He did do 2 translations. I was wrong, but he did some translation. But mostly, what remained from that Persian person, the monk, were actually the meditation manual as well. So.
I see. Thank you. It's my go-to. It's my go-to sutta when I lose my way.
You mean? Sorry, I didn't get it, Michael. What you were saying?
I'm saying that it's the sutta I go to over and over again.
You mean the Diamond Sutra?
When I'm beginning to feel confused, that's the sutta that I go to.
Oh, that's great. That's good to know.
Okay.
Are there any questions? Is it too confusing? And I know this is maybe not what you expect today, but I usually are very mischief sometimes. I like to make people a little confused and scared.
Bhante, may I ask?
Yeah, of course, and we should, have some discussion, or you share your opinions. I don't want to go further because otherwise it's too much at the moment.
I wonder.
Unless we have to really talk. Yes.
Please. I wonder the Kumarajiva have mentioned or translation about anything impermanent or suffering and non-self.
Oh, there are many. So, according to this, just now when we talk about his short biography, we introduced about him. he was ordained under the Sarvastivada. So certainly his practice is highly influenced from that school. So he has to learn how to understand the dukkhas. For example, when you practice the satipatthana, mean the full establishment of mindfulness, you establish your mindfulness on the body with regard to the body, like a feeling with regard to the feeling, the mind with regard to the mind, and so forth, right? So, and once they done that, they have to, according to that system, they have to understand everything is embedded with impermanence first. And you have to understand the impermanent come from because why is impermanent? Because it's impermanent. Why is impermanent? Because it's suffering, like that. So, no, sorry, I was wrong. Now, they have to understand it's impermanence, it's the suffering, it's the sunyata, mean that it's emptiness, it's not real. Sometimes, you feel it's like an illusion. And the other one, it's an illusion based on because everything is conditionality. And then also the last is there's no essence of that, because you think that's true, but it's when you bring it, it's not there, like no essence of there. So that's how they understand the truth of suffering. Sorry. And according to this system, and I love it actually very much. According to the system, it's a requirement to understand dukkha, the satya, the dukkha, the truth for suffering. You have to base on these four, and then keep on practice and practice. But then the foundation is on the satipatthana. Another thing I like to share is since you asked, and I find actually interesting, even though it was mentioned about Bodhisattva, how you should meditate, and have the Shanti Paramita and fulfill the Shanti Paramita to begin with. And when you look at the Pali also start with the metta, and then you have the upekkha, right? And then the Shanti Paramita, and in action also, even you must have the paramita of the perfection of the generosity. And to him, almost the same is the generosity means sometimes you have a shanti, you have the patience is generosity. Because even people abuse you, you just keep quiet. It's a kind of generosity too, because you don't want to abuse back, but you just only contribute back to the loving kindness and love, like this. And that's interesting. It is a commercial understand way. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Do you find it fascinating to know that? I mean, this Kumarjiva.
But I
it's a different way I understand Kumarjiva. Yes, please.
I wonder, he was mentioned the 5 types of meditation practices you mentioned before. But it is,
that's what in the text.
Yeah, but it's not, the impermanent wasn't there. Or something.
Sorry, I didn't get it. What is not there?
The vipassana inside meditation practice.
No, I did mention. He did mention about vipassana. So when you have done this 5 meditation, and then you have to do is the vipassana.
Okay.
And I was just, because I skipped the vipassana so much, I only mentioned only a few lines. Because after when you practice the vipassana, and then if you want to be a bodhisattva, but because vipassana, he said, if you practice vipassana until you could understand the Four Noble Truths, you become partially ascend. It means like not the sotapanna, but before you open your eye, So, but they, because I guess the Chinese at the time may be interested more about not become arahant, but how become the bodhisattva. But I have to say, actually, the text almost more than 2/3 of it are mentioned about how to become arahant, not about bodhisattva. I guess because it's a very important foundation. But only the difference is that then that person who practices this seriously, meditation, if they want to become bodhisattva, they shift just what I mentioned. I just talked today, a little bit. They after practice the satipatthana and understand the Four Noble Truths, and then they shift it to the great compassion and great loving kindness like that.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Bhante.
Well, I mean, sometimes I like to say about something about Bodhisattva because the important is not I want to reintroduce Bodhisattva path, but it's more like most of people talk about Bodhisattva path in a different way. So I was just based on the Kumarajiva's manuscript, the meditation menu, to describe how one practices the Bodhisattva path. And maybe, of course, this in Pali mostly you have lots about the 10 paramita also. 10 paramita, I think is a very good to understand is how they believe the Sakyamuni Buddha or the Gautama Buddha before they become a Buddha as a Bodhisattva. What did they practice? What makes them they go on reborn and reborn again? So I mean, what makes them become so good in good quality, and then they can still keep on reborn and reborn again, even though they might face different kind of suffering, but the mind is not being disturbed like that as a bodhisattva until become Buddha. I mean, it's a very, very detailed thing, and I love it because to me, I'm not the person is not too much of the blind faith person, I would say. I love at least in description, I would not say I could do it now, but in description, tell me very clearly how, if you want to, if you really work hard, if you really devoted, that you could do it. What way? It's not just like, not that, okay, you can do it. How? You have to tell me the method. Even though I might not able to practice in this life, but at least, okay, wow, okay, there's a so clear system how you do that. So if you want to really to be a bodhisattva. Well, I mean, we seeing these classes about meditation, it become more serious and no more in the practice. This is why I like to introduce. It's not about just faith discussion only. I mean like normal chit chat only. So I guess. Yeah. Well, okay. Let's just see whether any other question. Do you want to have a little break, or we should continue? I don't know how you usually do that. Have a whole 2 hours, so devoted, no break. Michael, should I call you Michael or Buddha Ruchi? Buddha Ruchi is a wonderful name. Okay?
I think Buddha Ruchi is fine. I think we usually take a 2-minute break, okay. But if it's a 2-minute break, sometimes it's only 1 minute. So it's up to you whether you would like to rest your voice.
Yeah, maybe 1 minute or 2 minutes. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
And people can prepare a question, and then we can come back and do a little meditation, right?
Wonderful.
Okay. Subodha, when do you come down to visit us?
Bhante, very soon, because I will visit to Florida, April.
You can see this is a room.
Yeah. Probably I will come in April, early in the April.
Michael, do you have time to come down here? Michael, we miss you. Oh, Buddha Ruchi, we miss you.
Okay. You know who gave me that name? Oh, I'll give you 3 guesses. Yes, I would like to. Let me email.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
With the time and the date.
Okay. So I'm using this the cup. It's the memory of the Queen, England Queen. You know, I studied in England before, so I think it's what is the anniversary? I can read it now, but I know it's his anniversary. So it was almost now. Time flies, 8 or 7 years or 8 years at least, 8 years ago while I was in England. So very British.
Michael, who gave you that name? Buddha Ruchi.
Venerable Dhamma.
I know. I guessed it.
Yeah, of course.
You know, the reason why I gave the name in those days because Michael was really, really happy to learn to recite the Buddha, you know, and contemplate the Buddha. So that's why I thought the Buddha Ruji is very, very fit him, and because he's always feel like he's always stay with the Buddha, you know, and I mean, you know, I'm sure Michael know the meaning of Buddha Ruji.
Yeah.
And at the time, he's very much devoted to the Mahayana, and he wanted to become a Buddha.
It's true. Yeah.
That's a great idea. It's good, you know, very it's good inspiration, you know.
I think so.
Okay, before we do meditations, with regard to what we were talking today, any comment before you really forget everything, or any question, comment? It would be great because some of your question not necessarily is your question, but you ask, maybe you think it will be benefit for everybody here, or at least for some people here. Any question and comment? Why you so quiet? It made me doubt that my the whole talk was like, you know, nobody understood what I was talking. Okay, no, it's all right. At the end, I will just have a little conclusion of the talk as well. Now, why don't we just do some meditation? And can you tell me also, the host here, tell me usually how long a meditation session you do it normally for one sitting?
Normally we sit for 1 hour.
Sit for 1 hour, okay.
But we're not necessarily, it's up to you today.
Okay. I think we will sit for about like 15 to 20 minutes. I will base on how the reaction of persons. And since we mentioned about the loving kindness, and I still think it will be great, I will conduct a class on the loving kindness today. Or what do you think, Subodha? Or you?
Yes, Bante. Yes, that's great. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Before that, I need to also stress that don't think that meditates on the loving kindness is a kind of like anumodana. It's kind of like a transferring marriage or like a prayer, you know, or maybe put it in a very modern English like a prayer. It's not just a prayer. Actually, is the way to develop the concentration of samadhi. I mean, from the just now the talk also, we might get some of the idea from it. Now we are not practicing the Bodhisattva path now. Of course, we're practicing still the foundation, the Shravakayana or the Arahantship path, and which is almost exactly the same as described in the Pali version, or even in any other tradition, the same. Okay, but for the sake of not only just eradicate of the anger and the hatred or resentment of the past, karma, which is to do with the resentment or anger. So that it will help you to eradicate that too. And also, so that for the present moment, it will be help us to develop the concentration, of course, samadhi. Okay. Let us just do that. Usually, I will start like a posture. I think we don't have time to describe everything, but at least a few main things about posture. One thing is about we sit upright, because normally we don't have that chance to sit upright that good. That we usually have so many focus and forget our physical body. Now we can pay a little attention to our physical body. We sit upright by tucking the belly and sucking your. Okay, don't mind my language, your anus actually. And then you have to release them, or relax them. Don't hold on there. Okay? This is how you keep your body upright. And then relax them. Okay, please don't hold it. And then relax that. And the other part is very important, is our shoulder. So we need to let the shoulder drops, and then it might be best if you can keep your both hands beside your body. Like almost like you feel your arms have a direct contact with your physical body. But then, of course, this is how you can keep your chest a little open, and then also basically keep your chest open. This is the way to keep your chest open, and then let them drops. In other words, not don't hold it. Just let the shoulder drops. The shoulder drops part is very, very interesting part, because once you let your shoulder drop, usually you feel much more relaxed. Now, usually we start meditate also. We also adjust our neck. How we adjust our neck? Usually we're tucking our chin a little bit. If it's necessary, you can pull back a little bit. Don't base on our camera here, because the camera is. Let me just adjust it if I can. Because I need to read sometime. Okay, and then we close our eyes, and we can have the teeth. We can close our mouth lightly, and the teeth we can clench lightly. Usually, after closing the eyes, we close the eyes because it's so that we don't have much distraction. I don't mean meditation had to close eyes all the time, but it's important to do that as a beginner. Then you get less distracted from outside world. Now we might have a certain mind going on. We might be paying attention to our physical body. We might know the body just a movement due to the breath. Or we might just mind was so occupied with many things. It's pretty normal, and never just fight against it. Because every time when we do meditation, we must learn. We must know things can happen, but what we need to keep the mind is keep the mind more straightforward and happy. In other words, anything that may be disturbed, you're not happy. So it is due to our wrong reaction. Accept it, whatever has happened to you now, or embrace it. And then just follow the Theravada or the Pali tradition. So we could just simply think, actually, ultimately, you care yourself the most. But if you don't understand that, it will be very difficult to pursue our practice. The same thing for the other person too. And this is why we don't want to harm the other. The same thing, we don't want people harm us. So then now you have to learn the love to yourself. I understand there's no good to have hatred. I mean, if there's a choice, there's a hatred or no hatred. No hatred is always better. So you know the danger of hatred. I think nowadays the war comes is also not just started with the covetous, the loud, the greedy, and the other thing is the hatred. They are not happy with the people. That's why it comes. Now we need to just meditate to ourselves first. And then we know that if we have much more patience now, it's good for us. Patience is always good. And now we need to wish ourselves be well in the physical body and no any suffering happening in our mental mind. Now we can just simply say, in Pali basically is Sukhi Homi Ni Dukkha Hoti or Homi or Sukhi Ni Dukkha Homi. I mean, may I be free from physical suffering and free from mental suffering. Or may I have a happy, or may I free from any suffering. Even though you just have only few glimpses of mind thinking, that's fine. But at least keep on. Keep this awareness. This is called mindfulness awareness. Again and again. When you've been distracted, and then bring back this awareness again. That is awareness of, may I be free from any suffering, may I be happy. And then slowly, not based on the words, but based on the understanding of the wish or the prayer, not the wording. Wording helping us to get less distracted. Make sure that the wording will make sure us to be in the right track. But the important is the understanding. Then your understanding, you really mean, I really wish myself to be free from suffering and just be happy. I really wish myself to be free from suffering and be happy. Make that wording become a real thing to you. Maybe sometimes your mind will thinking something else. Oh, I'm not happy with that, this and that. Those are distractions. Just like when you learn meditation, when you play the ball, when you play a sport, the same thing. You just want to focus your basketball, the ball. You are not being distracted by the people who are shouting, surrounding you, and all sort of things. Just back. We wish ourselves be happy. You might start to see a little comfort in, and that's a good sign. But don't be just distracted again. Back to the same wording and become a really mind, that really that your mind have that kind of wish to yourself. Now we need to shift a little attention to the other now. Now picture someone, best that person is still alive, at least you know that person is still alive, and picture that person's face, and the person is maybe very respectable to you, either because they treat you well, helping you well, or just because you just respect, no any other reasons. It's much easier because usually these people you don't harbor resentment to start with your meditation. So, and just picture that person. No matter whether you know that person well or not well, but many is you could easily don't have any resentment towards the person, but just only respect or feel very nice, comfortable with that person. Visualize that person's face a little bit out of your memory. And then now you still use the same way and wish that person be out of the suffering and be happy. So you could just simply think, or you can use a word and if you're not used to, may you be well and out of suffering. And then keep on and keep on. If there's any attention, that will be the person that you picture is, you put that person almost like a picture right in front of you, the person's face on it, profile, almost like a profile. That person's profile as a picture right in front of your face. You keep it in a distance like you look at a mirror. But then the main thing is that not just because you have the idea of the person, but then you have the loving kindness, and you need to, if that loving kindness is not sure whether you have it, and you need to use the word to help you first by saying, mentally saying or murmuring, may you be well and happy. In the same manner, not just use the word, and if you can, you need to really become a sincere and honest wish that person be well and happy. And this is how you develop your loving kindness. And this is also how you retain your loving kindness. The more you understand what loving kindness is, the more you can make it there. Maybe you're thinking almost like you're like actors or actress. You want to show you want the kindness. You may be thinking, I'm pretending now. No. Yes, a little bit, maybe at first. But as I say, because you start with a person you respect and you really feel comfortable with. But this is how you learn that you learn to recognize what the loving kindness is. What we call a metta in Pali or Maitri in Sanskrit. And the difficult part is retain. The retaining or the pervasive, let it be pervasive. It's just a perseverance of practice and practice. And relax. I forgot to say about that. We have a Pali term for this too. You need to meditate more. The longer the meditate, somehow you need to learn the better is you're not attached too much. You know you're doing it, but sometimes even you don't think about you're doing it. And also relax. If there's a way, you can just make it relax and relax. And then back to your awareness. If somehow you think that you need to change the person, the object of your meditation, the person as a being, sentient being, you want to change, you may change so, but if you can stick to the same person, you still can stick to the same person. Maybe best to say as far as you can retain or sustain your loving kindness is the most important. If there's a choice between the persons and the choice of sustaining or the loving kindness or the sustaining the love is more important. Some people, if they meditate, the front side become brighter. Don't look at the bright side. I don't want to say the English idiom. Don't look at the bright or the light. You know it, that's good, but you don't look at it. Otherwise, your focus is being distracted again. Just like, you start to have the room, have the light. Your purpose is looking for something in the room, is not looking at the light. Either you somehow think about the person's as a profile, how the person profile looks like, or, which is more important, is that somehow, or your loving kindness might still sustain. If you're not sure about that, just simply use the wording again, may you be happy, or may you be well and happy, or may you be happy and free of suffering. But if you feel the same, just trust yourself a little bit now that you know your loving kindness at least is still there. For sure, you have no hatred, you have no resentment. You have no resentment, you are not in hatred, but you only have love. I mean the pure love. The pure love, the pure caring mind, the more friendless mind, the very comfortable, which is wholesome, or called kusala, wholesome, which is beneficial to yourself and others. That kind of quality mind. When I run the bell, don't just open your eyes first. We do a little transfer marriage. Now learn how to emerge yourself from your focus, what we call samadhi. And then you emerge, kind of like pull back, and just maybe focus a little bit on your feeling, or actually it's a mind, but the feeling, like understand what kind of feeling you have. You are no more visualizing that person, not particularly generate your loving or love, but now just simply understand what kind of mind you have, and kind of pulling from a different focus situation to almost like just knowing what you're doing, your mind. You might be feel your mind a little comfortable, less like heated, but more like cooler, or focus, a little focus, and much easier. The focus is different from a practice on a technique, but it's still focus, but it's much softer. And now we need to do a little transfer marriage, since we have this charity time, have this valuable time, short valuable time. So we have to transfer marriage and wish what we were practicing, the goodness, by the power of the Buddha, or and also your meditation, and wish something. You can wish yourself to be, whatever. Everyone have their own wish. It's a kind of English you could call it prayer. And then you wish the other person, maybe you know some other people, your friends, somebody very close to you, what they wish, or the organization. It's very important. You need to know what you want, and then you could do the prayer to yourself sometime. And that's also remind yourself what is the main focus of you, and also is to motivate you, not beside the blessing that you get. And also for the other, what they wish, we must have some compassion to them. And the last, I would say, we wish the war will end soon. People if they are suffering, they can recover from suffering soon. If they are not still in there, and wish at least, everyone have their ideology, and then wish them could always make the better choice if they can in their life, and also the mind. Very, very important in any situation. I've been in the wartime. I know very important the mind not get scared. In our life, I always think the scare, the fear is always give it lots of problem. The war start come from that too. Either scare of loss of the power, or scare of loss of anything, scare of the life. I mean, we still have need to live, but just not to get me disturbed by the scare. I mean, this is what I think. And then wish them to be out of the scare, and then everybody find a good solution. Sometimes even have a better future. So when we hear the bell, so I mean, literally we separate our mind. One is more about focus, and the other is simply, the prayer. And then before opening our eyes, I still suggest you to look for the physical body and let your physical body relax. Make sure you relax your physical body and also have the right posture, adjust a little bit, because that's always good. At least, even though you might not, at least you have this time to adjust your body a little bit better and let your relax done properly. So it will be good for your physical body. And then you can slowly open your eyes. Okay, we have done about 30 minutes, actually maybe 25 to 30, I don't know, but of meditation or loving kindness. And I mean, I'm sure that you have a little taste. I'm sure so Bhikkhu Subodha always guiding your meditation as well. But I still think it's very important, even it's much easier when people guide you. Of course, I always know the same thing that when you study, it's much easier when the teacher was there and teach you how you should do your homework, right? But but then I still remind you, don't take that kind of luxury, be there, take it for granted. That luxury is always there, right? And then you need to practice yourself. You might be facing problem. The same thing when you do your homework, you face a problem. But this is how I become the really the what to call the something that really into you. So it's because you really practice. Even though not very successfully, still it's a way to do that. And it's very good that if you meet once a week, or at least the more the better. I'm sure then you always can learn something new. And the last I want to say, just to thank you. So if you have question, you can ask. But I still need to say thank you for the giving me this opportunity to share some of my understanding to you. Yeah. So see whether you want to say anything. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Bhante. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank you, Dhamma. Is that because I couldn't see who is online, but anyway, I couldn't see, I didn't see it, I would not look at it. So, okay.
And we will ask you again to join and teach again. Time
Maybe
to
next
time.
time I will
Yes,
go to
time to
talk
time.
something more complicated, so everybody say, no, don't look for Dhammadeva again.
No, it's quite the opposite. It's wonderful to see integration between the various schools of Buddhism, as though we act as though, oh, my school is against your school and your school is against my school, and your school is wrong and my school is right. And That's really, I think that's missing the spirit. For example, you know, is this sutta written, was this sutta really spoken by the Buddha? That's, to me, that's not the question. The question is this sutta reflecting the Dhamma? That's the question. I mean, I don't need to. So I think it's wonderful to hear the Bodhisattva path in a Theravadan context.
Yeah, thank you for that. So yeah, it's I mean, I would just also take this opportunity because I guess to see how other tradition or other system actually understand the practice also. Yeah. So I mean, I aware that also because Subodha mostly were given the instruction from the Pali perspective. I mean, it would be good there to know there was no much difference between the other perspective as well. So, and I don't have to deduce a Pali, even though actually my ground or my basics or my ground, my training mainly also from a Pali tradition. But that actually helped me to look at how the other, Kumarajiva, for example, his menu really put it into practice. And otherwise, I guess I maybe still follow what at least I learned in earlier time as a Chinese, reading a Chinese book, to think, oh, in other words, I would say the picture was not that clear. So but I still think it's good to have a very ground foundation first, like, when you have a Pali tradition, which is much earlier, at least from a teaching itself. I don't mean that, and just to say because earlier is the most utmost thing only. But I mean, at least it's a good basic, it's a good foundation. So it's something that at least it got us not to go astray too much. Okay. Anyway, I think the time is almost up. So I don't want to hold everybody, and I need to thank Subodha and also Buddha Ruji for the invitation of these classes, and I wish you all the best. And my understanding is that these classes run every week, right? So if those who have time, maybe can just join the class again, and if you are interested, you can contact Venerable Subodha. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I would just, traditionally, I would just usually do that, like, just a little Pali blessing, like Abhivadana Silasa Nichang Vutta Pachayino Jattaro Dhammang Vatanti Ayuvanno Sukham Palanti. In other words, mean all the things you have done, wish you to be, have power, have the beauty, and then happiness, and have a long life. Okay. Sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Dhammavipa. Thank you.
Thank you, Bante.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We'll see you.
Yes,
Okay.
see you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.